Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stotts and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. And today we're hosting another live Q&A. Now, there are a few things I need to cover before I really get into the meat of this video. Now, the first thing that I want to mention is that I am actually on baby duty tonight. Last minute scheduling conflict meant that Empress Samantha is actually out and about this evening. Little Princess Eleanor is sound asleep, but if she does wake up, I will have to go and address that. So that's the first thing. The second thing you might notice is the slight change of attire. Now, the reason for this is pretty straightforward. I wanted to mix things up a little bit. The suit that I had, the dress-down suit, it was fine, but I wanted something a little more Stomarian in the sense of the colour scheme. And so what I've done, for those who don't know, the Imperial Guard uniforms are a grey. And the grey is used as a sort of neutral colour because the idea going forward is that the citizens of other member states of the Empire will have their own sort of patches, their own colourings on the uniform itself, depending on which nation, which community they actually hail from. And I wanted to make sure that the colour was neutral so that it could be applied to all manner of different emblems, all manner of different colours. And so to tie the grey of the Imperial Guard to myself personally, I wanted to wear this grey uniform as well, not uniform rather, but suit. I've purchased a three-piece suit, which is grey, to match that uniform with the Imperial Guard. Tonight I am just wearing the waistcoat, and I do in fact have a blue tie as well. It might be a bit too dark, I haven't quite decided yet, I might get a slightly lighter blue, but this navy blue is something that I quite like, and so we're going to run with it. Now, it has been a while since I actually not just made a live, but made a video in general. And the reason for that is because over the last month or so, for those that don't know, my mother has been terminally ill for some time now, and it's gotten to the point now where her health has degraded quite significantly. And so my attention, my focus, my sort of mindset has just been elsewhere. And so I just wanted to reiterate that even though that Stomaria is plodding along as it should, everything's going along as it should, I have been personally spending more time thinking about and dealing with my mother's health. And so next month or two I suspect most of my focus will be there. But that is not to say that Stomaria has been neglected. It's just that I haven't been in the right place to make and edit and put out videos and make too many posts or be as engaged as I would otherwise like. But as I say, things are still plodding along, and I will get onto that in a moment. But yeah, don't expect massive amounts of information to be flooding out over the next month or two, just while things happen as they do. But with all of that said, I have been working at Southwood, Stomarian Province. In fact, I was talking to King Raoul of Wayward about this just this morning, actually, about what the plans are in the next couple of weeks. And so what's been decided is that I am going to be taking 2 or 3 days off in mid-February, and I will be moving a lot of resources down to Southwood, and I will be working with King Raoul in trying to freshen up the woodland and as much as we can. So the driveway into Southwood, that has already been partially extended, but we will be bringing in, I think it's 2 ton bags full of gravel and another ton bag full of sand. Sort of very natural, nothing sort of permanent if you like, it's just stone and sand. And we're going to be just tidying up that entranceway there just to allow more vehicles to park on the land itself. Because at the moment we are having to have vehicles park on a private road just adjacent to the woodland, and we just want to mitigate that as much as possible in the sense that we don't want to rub anyone the wrong way, we don't want to get on the wrong side of neighbours or whatever else. So we just want, when people do come, to have the option to come and park on the land itself. which is something that we do already do, but we're just looking to create more space for that. Beyond that, I am actually going to be taking out some stumps and installing more raised beds and more rhubarb on the land. We're also going to be really reshaping the woodland in some sense because of what we've been doing over the last month or two. We've been decommissioning some old chicken pens and all the rest of it. So some new fencing still needs to go up. A children's play area needs to be decommissioned and burnt. There's a lot of rubbish or debris still at the woodland, and I just want to clear everything out and I want to get rid of it. And so that's what we're going to be doing over the next few days in mid-February. So I quite look forward to that. Now, beyond that, the plan remains the same in the sense that everything has been set in motion to allow for the next purchase of Stomarian territory towards the end of 2025. Now, things are progressing as I would have expected on that front. That is to say, very slowly, but things are in motion. And I want to make sure that as many people are aware as possible that even though we have accomplished quite a lot ourselves at Southwood, this is really just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the first small step, because all we want to do is take what we have done at Southwood and replicate it on ever larger scales. And the ability to do that is going to be hampered by our a lack of immediate financial resources. That is to say, I need to build up the necessary revenue to actually purchase the next territory, and in addition to that, I also want to do various other things in my own life, not least retire, so I can focus all of my energies on doing this, on becoming the Emperor of Stomaria in a more full-time capacity. But that is obviously a big ask. I'm nothing if not ambitious, and if I can get anywhere near that towards the end of 2025, then that is where I would ideally like to be. But failing that, I do intend to still purchase land for Stomaria, regardless of whether or not I can retire or whether or not I have to sort of keep working for another few years until I'm in that position. Now, that to one side, there is also the question of how much we have accomplished over the last few years. Because even though, I can say that these are our aspirations, these are our objectives, this is what we hope to achieve, it is nevertheless something that I think people want to see an actual accomplishment. And so I thought a little later on in this video, it would be quite good to go through our website and go through each of our objectives in terms of agriculture, environmentalism, in terms of rights and responsibilities, taxation, and just all of these objectives that we have set out ourselves from day one, and just see how much of this we have actually accomplished and on what scale we have accomplished it. Because at the end of the day, what we really want to do is show people that it can be done. Now, there is another sort of field that I want to cover in this particular video, which is the question of alliances. For whatever reason, over the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I have been inundated with requests from people who want to join the Empire of Stomaria as a member state, have nations or communities or micronations applying to become member states, or want to establish a mutual recognition treaty or from some sort of alliance and all the rest of it. And this culminated in a particular exchange, which I'll get onto a little bit, which I thought was quite funny and is quite typical of the kind of interactions that I constantly have to have in that field, in that particular line of work. I can see there's just a few quick comments. The Oaken Union says hello, hello there, hello. The Slowjamastan just says Slowjamastan official. I don't know if it's a nation or a community, but he says hello, hello. And then it's the Oaken Union. Okay, fantastic. Hello guys, welcome. I'm not expecting a huge amount in the ways of interactions. I've not really built up this particular live Q&A as something any more significant than the first one. In fact, I wasn't really intending to do a second Q&A at all. But when we had our what is now the first Q&A on the 1st of January, it was likely going to be a one-off. If it was successful, we were going to do it a little bit more of it. But I wasn't really expecting it to take off. But it was actually something that I enjoyed doing quite a lot, and it was quite successful in that we did have, I think at the peak, just remembering the statistics now, I think we had 17 viewers at its peak on the first one, and I thought that was quite good because I wasn't expecting it to get out of double digits, frankly. So to get 17 on the first go, and I think we got something like, it must have been around 70, 75 watch hours as well, which again is very good, because it didn't require any real effort on my end in terms of thinking about a script and then doing the recording and editing the video and all that jazz. I really didn't have to worry about any of that, and so it was really worth doing, and it was nice to have a conversation, if you like, with the people that do follow us. Some of them were citizens, some like King Raoul or Lady Ellen. They joined us last time, as well as various other supporters and people who are interested in Stomaria, and have had a few questions back and forth, and it was good. I enjoyed it. And so if that does happen again in this video, then that's fine. But my main reason for wanting to do this particular video is, as I say, I haven't really been as active as I have in the past, nearly 5 years at this point, which is probably something we'll discuss later, because of the ongoing issues in my own personal life. So I just want to put out a video there just to go over what we've done, what the plans are in the immediate future, and just to remind people that we're still around. So we've had someone else, the Democratic Republic of Beliga. Yes, I remember you from the last live stream. Welcome, and glad you're still about. Can I just ask, don't give me details or anything, but are you, do you reside in the United Kingdom? Because for some reason I dimly recall, and this is back when we were having a conversation on another video, probably last year or the year before that. I have a feeling that you're from the United Kingdom, but I'd be curious to see if you were. We do, okay, all right, I'm going to start answering a couple of questions as they come in, just before I get into the meat of the issue here. So the Okian Union says, how do you interact with your people? And Okian is from the UK as well, and so is Beliga. Fantastic, I thought that was the case. So when you talk about interacting with my people, are you just referring to Stomarian citizens or someone else? Because I mean, the issue that we've always had in Stomaria is that because we were founded initially as kind of just a family enterprise, if you like, and we only really expanded our popularity and our citizen base through online promotion, in the sense that our foundation date, our official foundation date, is the 16th of June 2019. But that wasn't because that was the day we decided to found Stomaria, and then from that point on we developed our values and our aspirations and our objectives and all the rest of it. It was just the day that we went public, because there had been 3, 6, 9 months, probably longer than that even, sort of on and off, just ironing out the details of what Stomaria was going to be. But the reason we have the 16th of June as the foundation date of Stomaria is because that's just when we became public. It's literally, I think probably, if you go back on our Facebook page, the profile picture should say 16th of June 2019, and that's literally the reason that we have that starting date. And the only reason I want to highlight that is because one of the issues that we have is that I haven't recruited people from outside of my immediate family based on friendships or interactions I have with ordinary people. These are every Sumerian citizen, as far as I know, outside of my family, are people that we have either found or located where they found us, through our YouTube videos, through our Facebook groups, through our Twitter account, all of this different social media. And we are a good example of a nation and community that is very international, in the sense that the majority, or certainly a sizable minority of our citizens, actually live outside of the United Kingdom. Now, as a part of the process, I do interview face-to-face individual citizens. So I will have a WhatsApp video call or a Skype video call, and it will typically last an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and I'll just try to get on the same page with them. So I have met every single Stomarian citizen But because of the geographical locations of all of these different citizens, they have some in New Zealand, some in Mexico, some in Texas. If you want to count Consul David of Vesta, you have Alabama, Hong Kong, where else? Anyway, all over the world. But we do have a handful in the United Kingdom, and I have met some of them face to face. Lord Harvey being a very good example of that. So he's someone that provided us with various dairy products, because he's actually a dairy farmer, for the Imperial Summit that we had last year. So in terms of meeting Stomarian citizens, if they're local or in the United Kingdom, I ideally try to meet them face to face, because I think you need that in order to establish genuine community. But that aside, I will always interview, I will always have an interaction with Stomarian citizens through a video call at the very, very least. So hopefully that answers your question. Joaquin Nunez says, sorry, what is your relation with your people? Like, are you the leader? Do people like you or not? If you do, then what holidays do you celebrate other than traditional UK holidays? I'm not really sure how the two questions sort of link, but I mean, I guess some people like me, other people will not, depending on who they are. I learned a long time ago that you're never going to please anyone, so you may as well please yourself. And if other people find you likable or interesting, or someone that you want to get engaged with in some form or another, then that will happen quite naturally. So the best policy that I can recommend that anyone follows, and the one that I adhere to, is simply speak your truth, speak your mind, be as honest and open and transparent as to who you are, what you stand for, what you believe. And if people are interested, then they will support you because of who you genuinely are, as opposed to who you are simply presenting yourself as in order to gain some sort of popularity or credibility. So the short answer, I suppose, is some people will like me, other people will not. But as far as I know, Stomarian citizens all would like me, as far as I know. There we go. What do you think of Sparta, my micronation? That's from Steph. I don't know what Sparta is, I'm afraid. I mean, I obviously know a Sparta, historical Sparta, but I'm not familiar with your micronation. Apparently there's 4 people in it. I'm afraid I haven't come across it before, I don't know it. But if you do have more information on it, and you want me to review it in some form or another, then you're welcome to either do so here, or you can send us an email, and I'll review it, as I do for all sort of interactions with various groups, micronations, communities, and all the rest of it. I normally get 2 or 3 emails a week, maybe, from people who are interested in some sort of affiliation or want to highlight their own little community with us. So yeah, if you want to do it that way, do it that way. Steph, I like Greek culture and history, so I think the Micronation is fine. It's from Slowjamastan. Again, I don't know it myself, but yeah, I'm sure it's fine. So before I sort of get sidetracked too much, I did want to give an example of the kind of interactions that I typically get in terms of alliance requests, in terms of people sending me mutual recognition treaties to sign and all the rest of it, because I think it's quite funny. And I want to sort of walk you through the kind of conversations that I typically have. And this is a prime example of one. So it's a little bit long, I'm not going to lie, but I promise you, it just encapsulates quite well for me why I'm always hesitant to go down the route of engaging in formal capacity with other people. So I get an email, and it goes like this. Your Imperial Majesty, greetings from the Micronation. I'm going to omit the name of the individual and the Micronation in this particular example. An East Asian Micronation established as the Micronational resurrection of the Korean Empire, and as the world's premier Confucian micronation that operates within the framework of a federal parliamentary democracy and crowned republic. I write to you as the newly elected head of His Majesty's government, acting Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and Commander-in-Chief of the Micronation, to sincerely invite you to consider the establishment of formal diplomatic relations between the Empire of Stomaria and the Micronation, in order to develop respectful cooperative relations between our two peoples and governments consistent with the principles of sovereign equality, settlement of inter-micronational disputes by peaceful means, respect for the integrity of micronations, and promotion and encouragement and respect of fundamental human rights and freedoms. Attached is a draft treaty, tentatively signed by myself, that would effectuate the establishment of mutual relations between our two nations for your kind consideration. I look forward to hearing from you favourably. Right, okay, so this document that they sent, just for everyone's clarity, if you like, it was a mutual recognition treaty, in the sense that it actually says mutual recognition in the actual treaty, and it goes on to talk about inter-micronational conflict, about preserving human rights across the world, about recognizing and supporting micronations and all the rest of it. And what these kind of documents generally consist of is an A4 page full of text, which has a lot of information on there, but doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't actually aspire to do anything, in the sense that there was nothing in that document, had I signed it, that would have brought any benefit whatsoever to Stomaria, tangible or otherwise. And this is why I can't stand mutual recognition treaties. And if you are interested in a more in-depth review of my opinion on mutual recognition treaties and alliances and all the rest of it, then I suggest you go and watch my How to Start a Nation series, particularly the one regarding diplomacy, where I go into this in a lot more detail. But what they did is they sent some links to their website, and so I looked at their website. I had a look at what they stood for, and I quickly found that what they were doing, they looked quite slick, they looked quite professional, it's fine. But they had no aspiration to accomplish what we were. We are looking to establish an empire of commerce, of trade and enterprise. We are looking to attain a de facto independence through legal and legitimate means, through the acquisition of land and the utilization of that land to grow our own food, to provide our own water, to generate our own energy, to host events, to house citizens at some point in the future, to build Stomarian industries, to become as self-reliant as possible through, again, legal and legitimate means, doing all above board as a means of trying to pull ourselves away from what you might call mainstream society and attract people with similar values and similar aspirations through voluntary association and voluntary affiliation, and build a new culture, a new identity, a new civilization. That is what Stomaria is. None of this had anything to do with what this particular micronation was aspiring to do. And I replied as much in email, so we'll continue. Hello, so-and-so, again, omitting the name of the particular individual involved. Thank you for your information about the Micronation and your invitation for more formal relations with Stomaria. However, Stomaria does not respect the integrity of micronations or micronationalism and has actively worked to distance itself from such terms since December 2022. I can see from your website that you're looking to build formal relations with various micronations, including satirical ones, which is not something that we wish to associate ourselves with. We're looking to build an empire of trade, commerce, and enterprise with like-minded people, communities, and nations in order to attain greater levels of self-determination and self-reliance through legal and legitimate means. As this doesn't appear to be what you're looking to achieve, I'll have to decline your invitation for formal relations and wish you well for the future. Again, pretty standard, straightforward stuff. The kind of response I have to send out maybe 2 or 3 times a week to people that are looking to build formal relations with Stomaria. Nothing overly critical, I'm just saying what you're looking to do isn't really our bag. It's not really what we're trying to accomplish, and so I think it's best if we just leave it there. You go your way, and we wish you well for the future. And they replied, insisting that what they were doing was in line with what Stomaria was hoping to achieve. So, Dear Your Majesty, and you'll notice there's something else. Initially it was Dear Your Imperial Majesty, and then it's Dear Your Majesty, and we'll see what other response we get on the final response of this. Thank you for your prompt reply. If you have taken a slightly more thorough look at our website, you would probably notice that we are every bit as serious as Stomaria in state building, and our members do meet regularly in person for election campaigns and parliamentary and privy council meetings. Our largest conglomerate, the So-and-So Group, is actively seeking to expand the Micronations' trade and commercial activities overseas. We consider ourselves the sole legitimate successor and torchbearer of ancient Confucian civilization. Our head of state, His Majesty, the Emperor, though a constitutional monarch who doesn't participate in government operations, openly claims this prestigious title of the Son of Heaven, the rough equivalent of Caesar in Europe, which was traditionally held by emperors of China, Korea, and Japan. Nowadays, even the Emperor of Japan has tactfully abandoned the title. You may notice that the term micronation has appeared merely once in the very reluctant disclaimer in our constitution. It could have appeared more were we truly believers and practitioners of micronationalism. To be very honest, our reference to ourselves as a micronation and development of relations with one satirical micronation are nothing more than pragmatic strategies to protect our members from being prosecuted and persecuted by harsh national security laws on secession and the like in our part of the world. Without this screen, it is plainly impossible for us to have travelled this far within a matter of months. I hope you could understand the above and kindly reconsider your decision before misjudging us and declining us. So, what they are saying is that everything I read on their website was not correct, in the sense that they're saying, yeah, we might have defined ourselves as a micronation, but we're not really a micronation, we're just playing the game. And we're every bit as serious as Stomaria. Your aspirations are our aspirations. Now, I took the time to reread the website and to get a more detailed look as to what this micronation was. Now, I obviously had done my due diligence beforehand, but they're insisting something that I was not aware of. And so I had another look, and the same conclusion that I originally came up with was the same conclusion that I had now. And I told them as much, and I went into more detail as to why this application, this mutual recognition treaty that they had already signed and sent to me, expecting me to sign, was not going to be signed, because I had no interest in building mutual recognition treaties with, prior to that, completely unknown entity on the other side of the world that didn't bring anything to the table, that didn't benefit Stomaria in any way. And so I replied, "Hello, so-and-so. If you are engaging in trade and commercial activities, this is not something that is immediately obvious through the stated purpose and objectives of the micronation. It is defined on your website as a spiritual micronation established for moral, educational, and research purposes, and as a simulationist and academic project, with the primary mission of micronation being to unleash the potential of every person to become a sage through the reviving practice of Confucian spirituality, the most powerful way of life that originated from East Asia. None of which has anything to do with what we're trying to build, regardless of how often you meet or what you consider yourselves to be the legitimate successor of. The attached document refers to mutual recognition, something that we have repeatedly criticized. Mutual assistance between micronations, a term we actively disassociate ourselves with. Intermicronational military conflict, something we've repeatedly mocked, and more besides. There is nothing in the document that stipulates anything that would bring any actual benefit to Stomaria, but would actively undermine our long-held positions on various other matters. We're only interested in building relations with those that where there is mutual benefit. Your geographical location alone makes it very unlikely that anything tangible can be gained from association, and your self-description and stated objectives only reinforce this. As I said, we'll not be signing this document, but we do wish you well for the future." Again, doubling down on what I said originally. Nothing particularly critical, I'm just highlighting what is on their own website and emphasizing that this is not what Stomaria is trying to do. So again, this is something that I have to do over and over again with many self-defined micronations. And the response, again, is very typical in this particular example, and it's the kind of response I always get. I would like to be your ally. And I'll say, no, you're not really doing what we're trying to do, but we wish you well for the future. And then they'll go, yes, we absolutely are doing what you're doing, and this is why. And then I will re-emphasize our initial position in that I don't think you are, But still, I hope everything goes well for you. And then we get to the final email, the final conversation, the final point that they want to highlight, not just in this example, but generally speaking, which is, well, I never wanted to be your ally anyway, and you're crazy, and you're delusional, and all the rest of it. And it's literally an essay about how I'm clearly suffering from mental health issues, and that what they had said in their previous email about them being a serious nation building project, that wasn't really true at all. They were just saying what they needed to say because they thought they could get some sort of mutual recognition treaty out of me. And so, as a final little snippet, here we go. So, you'll remember what I said. Initially, referred to me as Your Imperial Majesty, then referred to me as Your Majesty, and now it just says Andrew. Now, for the record, I don't actually care if people refer to me as Your Majesty or Imperial Majesty or your the Emperor or whatever else. I tend to make an active effort in dissuading people from referring to me as that, because when I have a conversation with someone, I like to have that conversation on a level ground. I don't like people to think that they have to constantly refer to me as Your Imperial Majesty, Your Majesty, whatever else. I'm not fussed about titles. I have made that clear very clear in the past, and I will reiterate it again and again and again. Titles really don't mean anything to me. What matters is real world activity, real world development, real world progress. But that aside, Imperial Majesty, Majesty, Andrew. With all due respect, so you know it's going to be good, the positions your micronation adopt appear to indicate a severe level of delusion on your part. You know, we know, and everyone knows that if Stomaria is anything, it cannot be anything other than a micronational hobby, or a mere private enterprise of the United Kingdom, or a treasonous organisation seceding unlawfully from the usurping power against your sole legitimate constitutional sovereign, His Majesty King Charles III, and his lawful successors. At least we in the Micronation are honest enough to admit that we are, and by extension Stomaria, a micronation and a simulation, and sincere enough to have made an open and transparent pledge to educate, civilize, and contribute to the knowledge of mankind, however small our contribution might be. It transpires we should not have approached you in the first place, in light of your current state of mental health. We sincerely apologize for aggravating your apparent illness by way of our previous messages. We are tremendously sorry for your experience. We furthermore advise that you seek assistance from the NHS and psychological and psychiatric and social work professionals. Do not be intimidated by the stigma associated with delusion, hallucination, and the like. There can be no health without mental health. Although it is quite unlikely that you would regard us as friends, as people of goodwill, our micronation at large nonetheless remains in full support of your swift recovery. However, if you are not mentally ill, then your positions would quite possibly suggest that you and your organisation are dishonest, not only to others, but to yourselves. If that were the case, which we hope it is not, then I believe it is even more regrettable for us to contact you in the first place, as dishonesty betrays values that we hold dear. So there we have it. We've gone full circle. We would like to have an alliance with you. No thank you, you're not really our cup of tea. We're absolutely your cup of tea. We're absolutely standing what you stand for. What you stand, we're the same. No, I don't think so. You're just really not for us. I've read the website. You know, it's not for us. And then the final email, well, you're clearly delusional. We're mentally ill. And this is, I use this as an example, but this happens all the time. Literally every week. These are the kind of conversations I have to have. And for the record, if anyone ever comes across a post or a comment or something from so-and-so Micronation or some sort of Micronationalist, and they go, oh yeah, that's Stomaria, they're wrongins, they're no good or whatever else, there's a very good chance that they are people that we have scorned in some way, because we have rejected an application that they have made in terms of trying to build an alliance with us. And if we can't build an alliance with them, then we're obviously no good, and therefore we are ripe for criticism. And as a general rule, and I think a lot of people do know this, that if you want to get some sort of notoriety, if you want to get recognition in some form or another within the micronational community, then a very good bet is to mention Stomaria. And if you can't get recognition from Stomaria, if you can't get a mutual recognition treaty from Stomaria, if you can't get what you want from us, then what typically happens is that they go the other way and they will condemn us or declare investigations or sanctions or embargoes or whatever else, because they know it gets the clicks, they know it gets the likes, because we're quite a well-known entity, we're quite a well-known established nation, established community, with a comparatively massive following with thousands of people subscribing to our YouTube channel, many thousands more on our Facebook page or Twitter account or Discord server or whatever else. We have quite a wide reach across many social media platforms. And so a lot of people will be familiar with us, and that is why we do get as many requests as we do. But as I say, if you are going to approach Stomaria about some kind of formal affiliation, if you're going to approach Stomaria about wanting to build closer ties with us, then you better be in a position where I can look at that application and go, I can see Stomaria, the Stomarian community, the Empire at large, benefiting from that kind of association and that kind of affiliation. Because if there isn't any actual, tangible, real benefit there, then there is no reason for us to engage in a formal relationship. I'm not going to go out of my way to undermine or harass or in any way belittle a nation or a community just because they've approached us with a mutual recognition treaty offer and we turn them down. You will not see 99.9% of the people that apply for these and get turned down being mentioned by me at all. And over the last 5 years, we have had literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I think probably, if we average out about maybe 2, 3 a week, possibly a little less when we initially got started, there must be a solid 300 or 400 applications we've had in some form or another. And I generally turn them down because there is just nothing to be gained. And a lot of these nations and communities and micronations that are looking to build relations with Stomaria, they do tend to fizzle out and die a death, as most do within a few weeks or a month or so. And so it just reinforces the initial point, the initial criticism that I have with these sorts of applications and this eagerness to just to build affiliations with everyone as quickly as possible. It needs to be worth something. There needs to be a tangible benefit to both parties. Otherwise, it's just not worth doing. And that is why we have the Empire as it is. The reason that we're not so fussed about forming alliances or any kind of affiliation with other nations or other communities or other micronations is primarily because Stomaria already has an empire. So you have Stomaria itself, and then you have the Empire. And the Empire consists of other member states, other nations and other communities. They have been integrated in the Empire because they bring something to the table. They are either, they're trade partners. They are active in a real world capacity. I have met them. I have engaged with them. We have done something together. This goes for the Republic of Vesta, and it goes for the Kingdom of Wayward. And even though the Republic of Vesta is based in the United States, and I've only ever met Consul David of Vesta in various meetings, Imperial Court meetings, and spoken to him online many, many times, obviously. The reason that we can have that kind of affiliation with someone as far afield as that is because we have still engaged with them. They have sent us however many kilograms of copper, which they have refined themselves, and we have sent them Stomarian status. They are an active nation, and they are looking to build something very real and genuine in the future. And I have had people become citizens in the United States, and they've had conversations, or some of them have conversations, with Consul David as well, because they're, relatively speaking, in close proximity. And so trying to build that network is important. But if I think there is nothing to be gained through some kind of formal affiliation, especially an external one, with a self-defined micronation, if I just don't feel like they have anything to offer, then I just won't go down that route. And in this particular example, which I just went through, you can see why I generally have the attitude that I do. Because I know from experience that it doesn't matter what they say, it matters what they do. And what they're doing is not what we are doing. And it became very self-evident very, very quickly that what they were doing was not going to benefit in any shape or form. So just to reiterate, before I get on to any of the questions or concerns in the chat, which I can see is coming in, when it comes to formal affiliations, building them with Stomaria, bring something to the table, and don't be dissuaded or feel like you need to go off the rails because you apply and for whatever reason we have to turn it down. So that's all I want to say on that one. Now, we do have some questions and queries. Let's just have a look. The thing about the chat, and from that last time I had the same issue, it has a nasty tendency to scroll, and I have to keep scrolling back up in order to find my place. So you'll have to forgive me that I'm going to have to keep scrolling back and forth here. So every time someone makes a comment on the chat, it jumps it down, and I have to scroll back up. So the Oaken Union says, do you have anyone who wants to take your power? Does your nation do voting? If so, how does it work? And has anyone ever tried to take your place? No, we are an absolute monarch. So the way that we are governed is pretty straightforward. My word is law, and I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent because I've made literally half an hour long videos about this particular topic. If you're not already familiar, the Oaken Union, don't know your real name, feel free not to mention it here, but the How to Start a Nation series goes into a lot about some of these topics that you're discussing, and a lot of the aspects of Stomaria is also talked about in these. So just go and have a look at that. But I suppose the short answer is we are an absolute monarchy. We don't have elections, and one of the primary reasons for that is because Stomaria values the integrity of its territory, in the sense that we consider territory to be anything that is private freehold land that has been purchased legally and legitimately. It means that you can actually utilize that land to advance your objectives. If I claim a public park, or the surface of the moon, or an entire country or continent or whatever else, it doesn't matter because I can't actually do anything with that. So we only consider territory to be private freehold land. So when I purchase private freehold land, like Southwood, which is our the first ever Sumerian province, I do not want random people dictating to me what I can and cannot do with that land. I do not want random people giving them the authority to vote me out of office because the land is mine. It isn't the community at large that owns this land. They haven't contributed enough or anything to it in order to actually acquire that land. So if I'm putting in the time, if I'm putting in the effort, if I'm putting in the work in order to actually purchase this land, I want total authority over it. I want total control over it. I want to be able to utilize it the way I see fit. It might not always be the right way forward, but it is my way forward. And that makes sense because Stomaria is very much, I suppose, libertarian in its approach. We value private property. We value private freehold land and personal rights and personal liberty and all the rest of it. And even though being an absolute monarch appears on the face of it to fly in the face of that kind of value system in terms of libertarianism, when it comes to this sort of scale, it couldn't be further from the truth. They're very much in line. If you just want to think to the phrase or term, that every home is, if you consider every home to be a kingdom and every man to be a king of his own castle, then that's the kind of attitude that we have, in the sense that if it's your land, it's your land. And a good example would be the Kingdom of Wayward and the Republic of Vesta. Both of them have land. Now, they both form a part of the Empire. Their territories form part of the Empire, but I have no jurisdiction over that land and territory. It's theirs, it's not mine. Why would I have any jurisdiction over their own land? I wouldn't, because it's not my land. And the same principle applies when it comes to democracy. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's my land, I will do what I want with it. But that is one of the core reasons that we are an absolute monarch. Again, I would encourage you to go and look at some of our videos that discuss this in a lot more detail. But no one's ever tried to overthrow me. I've had plenty of people try to force me into a particular direction, but in terms of taking control, they can't, because I live in reality. I don't live on a Discord server where my power extends to nothing more than an admin server position or whatever else. So, no one can take control over Stomaria, even if they wanted to. We have 10 people. Bryson Heslop says, I know you get this a lot, but incredible what you have accomplished. I think it is, because when you think about where Stomaria started, when you look at how we began, which was just a flag in the corner of my living room with myself and my wife and 14 followers on our Facebook page. That is the start of Stomaria. That is how we launched ourselves. And to go from that to where we are today, in that we have acquired private freehold land, we have grown our own food, we have collected our own water, we are composting on the land itself, we have minted our own silver Stomarian status as a form of sound money, which has been utilized by not just Stomarians, but also members or citizens rather of the other nations that make up the empire, not least the Waywoodian community. I have purchased goods from Waywoodian citizens, from their stalls, from their markets, and they have accepted these silver coins and silver bars in exchange for some of their goods, some of which I have here in my home. And the utilization of sound money is obviously something that we hold dear. But from, as I say, just going from a flag to have accomplished so much, to have built a genuine community which is active in the real world, in terms of, it really, sometimes you do have to take a step back and just realize just quite how far we've come. But then, at the same breath, we want to acknowledge that even though what we have accomplished is fantastic and leaps and bounds ahead of what most people can and will ever do, it's never going to be enough. We will always keep pushing for something bigger. We will always keep pushing for something more. And the acquisition of more territory, the growing of more food, supplying more water, generating more energy through solar or wind or whatever else, utilizing the Sumerian stata as a medium of exchange in a more regular capacity. All of this is going to be something that we're going to be pushing forward in a more major way in the years ahead. But like all things, it just requires the financial resources to actually accomplish it. And so pushing that as much as I can in, putting my nose to the grindstone in terms of making cuts in my own personal expenditures and all the rest of it in order to actually promote Stomaria in a more heavy way, in order to acquire more resources and more territory and more people to push things forward even further. That is what we're about. But yes, just to acknowledge that comment, we have accomplished a lot, but there's a lot more to do. See, done it again. The Slowjamastan official. Is it Slow? This is always the issue I'm having with these at the moment. It's the pronunciation. So if I mispronounce your name in any shape or form, and that goes for anyone, do let me know. Slowjamastan official. Of course, Slowjamastan is always open to international diplomatic relations. We're also one of the founders of the World Organization of Micronations, which currently has 11 members. All right. Well, Stomaria doesn't join micronational organizations. It never has. It never will. I mean, we actively distance ourselves from micronationalism more broadly because it is quite detrimental to what we're trying to do, in the sense that people that come across the term come across various satirical or goofy micronations, and they just assume that we're the same as that. And I can say with some confidence that I'd say 95% of Stomarian citizens have never or will ever define themselves as micronationalists. What we are doing is not micronationalism. We are building something genuine, something real. And what most micronations tend to do is be nothing more than online troll farms, which last about 2 weeks until the anonymous people that actually found them dissolve it, change the name, change the flag, come back as something else, and you would never even know. So, again, made videos about this football thing before, but generally speaking, micronational organizations are just a worse version of micronations. But still, if that's something you want to do, if that's something you want to pursue, if it's something you enjoy, go nuts. But in terms of formal affiliations, that is not a criteria that we look for when it comes to formal affiliations with other entities. From Stomaria's own perspective, micronational organizations carry no weight for us. Oh boy, my favourite seat. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Serbska, Empire of Serbska. How big is your micronation if you know? Are you referring to me, if I know how big Stomaria is? Or maybe you're talking to someone else, so I'll wait for clarification on that before I get into that. Slowjamastan official says, hello my Slavic brother. European Union, he called you mentally ill. He did. It's not the first time. People always do it through email or comments or messages or whatever else. They would normally only do so if they approach us and they can't get their own way. They'll normally say we're mentally ill or unstable or delusional or anything else along those lines. But the simple fact is we founded Stomaria. Stomaria was founded with a set of objectives and values and aspirations, and we are not only aspiring to accomplish these, but we have already accomplished all of them on some level, which is probably something I'll talk about in a little bit. So the idea that we are somehow misguiding people, or that we are delusional, or we don't know what we're doing, or don't know what we're talking about, or we're being dishonest as to what we're trying to do, we outlined what we want to do. We have constantly talked about what we're trying to do and how we're going to go about doing it. And we are doing it. You know, we talk about the need to acquire private freehold land, provide our own food, generate our own electricity, provide our own water, to become more self-reliant through legal and legitimate means. That's exactly what we're doing. So, I mean, these kinds of people don't really have a leg to stand on. It's kind of like the last roll of the dice when they get a bit frustrated when they can't get their own way with us. That's normally what happens. Homeland says, hello, finally I get to see one of your videos that I'm not too late to. Can you please say hello to me? Hello, Homeland. I mean, I've only ever done 2 lives before. This is the second live that I've ever done, so the fact that you would miss the first one isn't a major surprise. I'm sure many thousands of people have missed the first one. So you're not alone in that. The European Union says, oh my god, Homeland is a fraud. And Homeland replies, you're a fascist. Is this going to be a thing in the chat? Because I'm just not going to run through that. I'm just going to skip over these sorts of comments if that's what I'm going to have. And if you want to have a conversation of that ilk on the chat, I'm not going to stop you. It's fine, but you might be better off doing it elsewhere because I'm not going to pay any attention to that sort of thing. European Union says, what holidays do you do? I mean, there's only really 2 events that we celebrate in Stomaria in any real way. And that is the 11th of June and the 16th of June. And there has been some talk as to whether or not we can just make the days in between those 2 dates a holiday in itself. So the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. But the significance of those particular dates is the 11th of June was the birth of Princess Eleanor, my daughter. And she was born almost in a year exactly after Stomaria was founded. So Stomaria was founded on the 16th of June, which is why the 16th of June is a significant date for us. Or at least that's the day we went public. So that is the day we ran with. So the 16th of June is the foundation date of Stomaria in 2019. And then in 2020, on the 11th of June, so just 5 days short of the anniversary, little Princess Eleanor was born. And to this day, I've never really forgiven Empress Samantha for having Eleanor 5 days before the anniversary date of Stomaria. So it is what it is. Joking, obviously. But yeah, those are the 2 most significant dates for us. Not only because it was the birth of my daughter, but it was also the first ever Stomarian-born citizen, and the first citizen outside of Samantha and myself. Because we were intending to wait a full year from the foundation of Stomaria to our 1-year anniversary to iron out all of the finer details of what Stomaria was actually going to do, how it was going to do it, and all the rest of it. We were going to give a year before we allowed other people to become Stomarian citizens, because it would be fair, from our own perspective anyway, certainly mine, to get people involved, to have them as joiner citizens, but not really fully understand what we were doing, because we hadn't necessarily put out all of the necessarily fine and nitty-gritty details out there as to what this was going to be. And so we wanted to give ourselves a year after we went public for people to get to know what we were doing, to develop ourselves in some way. So Princess Eleanor ended up, because it was 5 days before our 1-year anniversary, being the 3rd ever Stomarian citizen, and the first ever Stomarian-born citizen. So that's why we celebrate those 2 dates, the foundation date of Stomaria and Princess Eleanor's birthday. What happened if you broke out in a civil war, and why do you think it can end up happening? I mean, civil wars in the context of what we're building aren't really a thing. I did actually put out a video in December 2022, so over a year ago now. I think it was called Stomaria's First Civil War, or something like that. It was something civil war-y. to mock the concept of a civil war. Because a civil war will consist of someone leaving Stomaria in a huff. They'll, literally pick up their bag and go home. There won't be anything that will affect Stomaria in any shape or form. The land belongs to the imperial family. It belongs to me and Samantha. Maybe if Samantha gets fed up with me and divorces me or something, there'll be a division of territory or something like that. But it won't be a civil war. There's no possibility of hostile takeovers, and there's no possibility of someone trying to muscle in on what we have built, because everything is ultimately under my jurisdiction, everything's under my control. And if it's not, it's because it's not Stomarian. So even though the Empire of Stomaria, for instance, like I mentioned before, exists, and we have the Kingdom of Wayward and the Republic of Vestor, whoever else that comes in the future, they might bring something to the table, they might bring territory, they might bring land, but it's not Stomarian. And if they leave, it will obviously take a chunk of territory out of the Empire as a whole, but Stomaria itself, the core, will not be affected in any shape or form. But yeah, so civil wars, they're not a thing. They're not worth celebrating, they're only worth ridiculing and mocking when I come across them. So again, this is the one of the issues with micronationalism. There's an obsession with civil war and conflict and hostilities and all the rest of it. I have neither the time nor the inclination or the interest in this sort of thing. It's about genuine nation building for me, about civilization building, about establishing a culture, establishing an identity, and actually trying to attain what a real nation would actually look like in terms of having the infrastructure in place, the ability to feed our citizens, feed our people, supply our own water, supply our own energy, and all the things that I keep going over and over and again. This is what nation building is to me. And the empire itself is simply an extension of that, in the sense that we're an empire of trade, commerce, and enterprise. The idea being we're going to interact with these different nations and communities within our own network in order to build up Stomaria itself and the member states of the empire. And we will get into that in a little more detail further on. But for those who already follow in Stomaria, you already know like the relationship between Stomaria and Wayward, and how mutual benefit, or how much mutual benefit there has been there as a good example. So I'm not going to get into that here. But in terms of like civil wars and things, it just really isn't a thing. So I'm not concerned at all. The Oak Union says, Homeland, I think it would be against the law. Well, I mean, there's no specific Stomarian law that says there can't be a civil war as such, but in terms of the law of the United Kingdom, it's a case of it's my land, it's my territory, it's my property. You can't be seized or controlled by someone that doesn't like my stance or something. is the simple answer. If parts of your empire wanted to be independent, would you let them go? Yes, and we have done exactly that. I mentioned a moment ago the Stomaria Civil War video, because the Molossia and Brown Howl, which were both member states of the empire for a time, they decided, I'm not going to get into all the details here, but they decided that they no longer wanted to form a part of the empire, and they left. And that was it. There was nothing that affected Stomaria in any shape or form. It didn't impact our ability to function in any shape or form, because they were external to Stomaria. I mean, it was a loss in the sense we lost 2 citizens, as in leader of Brown Howl and leader of Molossia, so there was a reduction in real-term citizen numbers. But that aside, there was no actual damage that was done to Stomaria, because what possible damage could there have been? I mean, Stomaria wasn't going to fold because 2 people left the wider empire, and so and I mean, it would go for the same for the Kingdom of Wayward or the Republic of Vestor, for instance. If for whatever reason they decided to leave the empire, I wouldn't force them to stay at all. If that's generally how they felt, I would let them go, because there was obviously a reason that would force that decision to happen, and I'm not going to change Stomaria in any shape or form to suit any particular individual or any particular community. We are what we are. And if people want to join us, they'll join us. If they don't like what we stand for, they don't have to join us. If we evolve or change in some way while they're in the empire and they decide to leave, then that's fine as well. But the point is, I will never be blackmailed. I will never be beholden to any individual, any nation, or any community, because doing so would undermine our own legitimacy. And being able to affiliate with Stomaria voluntarily goes both ways. I'm happy for people to affiliate with Stomaria voluntarily, and if they want to leave, they leave voluntarily. No harm, no foul. Simple as that. Matthew Graham says, "What's Stomaria's stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict?" So Stomaria has a very simple stance when it comes to this sort of thing. I had the same stance when it came to the election of Donald Trump, or COVID, or Brexit, and any number of issues you can name, either on the national or international stage. The Russian-Ukrainian war, for instance, would be another good example. We do not comment on these sorts of things because it's not relevant to what we're trying to do. And that's the simple truth. I don't make decisions on behalf of all the citizens of Stomaria on matters that have no bearing on Stomaria itself, because it's irrelevant. I mean, in time, maybe we will discuss these more broadly as we become larger and more significant, and if our opinion matters. But when we are out here trying to buy plots of land in order to become more self-reliant and self-sufficient, we're growing potatoes, we're minting Stomarian stata coins and stata bars in order to utilize them as a medium of exchange. We're trying to collect water and purify it. We're trying to acquire as much energy as we can through renewables such as wind or solar. Me commenting on a war in Ukraine, or a war in Yemen, or a war in the Congo, or a war in Palestine and Israel, it doesn't serve any purpose to Stomaria. And I think more micronations would do well to probably take that kind of attitude on board. If you're not going to actually do anything about what you're commenting on, then why comment on it? It doesn't seem to be any particular reason or purpose behind it. So, if you're the leader of a nation of 5 or a community of 5, then you're welcome to air your opinion. I'll never stop you from airing your opinion, but it's not going to mean anything to anyone on the greater scheme of things. And what we talk about and what I talk about does have an impact on what we are doing, because I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to force anyone to think or do what I want. I'm doing what I believe to be right, and if people want to get involved in what we're doing, then they can, again, through voluntary association, voluntary affiliation. So yeah, in terms of what we might call macronational affairs, we typically just don't comment on them at all. So no comment would be my answer. Matthew Graham also asked, what happened to the Patriotic Socialist Party? So for those that don't know, when was I? 18, 19? I founded a political party called, it was initially called the United People's Party. I became a councillor on my local council, and then I became another councillor on another local council when I was 19 and, let's say, 20, 21 maybe. So 2 different councils and 2 different times. And we, the United People's Party was quite broad church in the sense that we weren't really a left-wing party, we weren't a right-wing party, we were a party of pragmatism and what you might call common sense. So we had values and aspirations that kind of pulled from what you might call traditionally left and right sources. Now, as the United People's Party sort of grew and expanded, we attracted more citizens, more members, more party members, and attracted some more councillors and all the rest of it, and they joined us. And we were only very small fry. I think the United People's Party had probably, I'm going to say 30 or 40 party members. I might be wrong on that. But anyway, as we grew and expanded, it was decided by the party membership that it would be better to rebrand ourselves to more readily encapsulate what we were trying to do, in the sense that we were trying to pull together left-wing and right-wing values to build a party that represented people at large and was rooted not in a specific ideology as such, but rather just what we believe to be the correct course of action for on any given matter. It might be environmentalism. I was always a keen environmentalist, for instance. It was, funnily enough, monetary reform. It might be integration of immigrant community that came to the United Kingdom in order to better build a cohesive society, or whatever else. It was, a wide range of values and aspirations from across the political spectrum sort of brought into one. And so it was, we had a vote, and the name of the party was changed to the Patriotic Socialist Party. And I led that for a little while. We contested some elections. We actually increased the number of councillors, and it was quite something. I did enjoy my time while it lasted, but by the time I think I was 24. Yeah, I think I'm no, 24, 26. I was 26, and I decided that politics was taking up a bit too much of my time. I was trying to focus too much on trying to convince people to think a certain way so we could get enough votes to do certain things. And when you're going door to door and knocking, sometimes you can have some quite engaging conversations, but a lot of the times when you're trying to talk to people, their eyes kind of glaze over when you're trying to talk about different economic or monetary systems or why they should be voting a particular way and all the rest of it. And I really did feel like I was just bashing my head against a brick wall a little bit. I spent my life between 18, 19 to 26 just talking about or build my life around politics, and I never really got to get out there and enjoy life in any real meaningful way, because I was always worried that if I went out and did something silly, as a lot of young people do, then that would be on the internet forever and it would affect the credibility of the party, and I'd undermine what I had built. And so I was always very conscious of not doing anything or going anywhere or saying anything too risque. So I did lose a good chunk of my youth through that sort of activity. And I decided when I was 26 that I had done enough. I'd pushed it as far as I personally could, or as far as I was willing to do so at that point. And so I put it to the membership that I was standing down, and the consensus was that if I wasn't going to be leading that party, then they didn't want to continue it, and so it was dissolved. I tell a lie. It did go through one more transition from the Patriotic Socialist Party, and it was actually renamed to the British People's Party, again just to kind of to attract a broader appeal. And again, it did. We did attract some more party members, and we did have some success there. But again, by the end of it, it had transitioned from the United People's Party to the Patriotic Socialist Party to the British People's Party, all consistent of the same overall values, aspirations, the same members, and all the rest of it. It just changed the curtains, basically. And by the end of it, I just really had enough. And incidentally, a few months later, I actually ended up meeting the now Empress Samantha, and started to live my life a little bit on that front. And so I actually met Samantha, and ended up marrying her. And then when it came to Stomaria, so about 3 years after I left politics, I did have that itch still to try to do something, to try to change my little corner of the world. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between politics and what we're doing in terms of nation building, which is when you are doing what we are doing, you're just trying to take your own little corner of the world and change it to the way that you think it should be. You're not necessarily trying to convince anyone that this is the way it should be, and you don't need to. I mean, we're proof of that. Everything that we have tried to do, we have done through our own efforts. We don't need to convince an entire village or entire town or entire constituency or entire whatever that this is the way that this should be done. You should vote this way in order for us to accomplish it. We're just doing it ourselves. And if people want to get involved voluntarily, then they can do. And that's the difference between the two. And that's why I prefer nation building over politics, because in politics, you're desperately trying to convince everyone to think a certain way, to believe a certain thing, to push forward an agenda. And once you get to a certain point, you can potentially undermine your own values and aspirations in order to appeal to a greater audience. We never really got to that point because there was no necessity to do so. We were very, very small, less than 100 members, even at our peak. But that kind of loss of faith in yourself, the undermining your own values, is something that can be quite prevalent in politics because necessity sometimes dictates it. Whereas nation building, it's my values, it's my aspirations, this is what I believe in. If you don't like to get involved, don't get involved, it's fine. I'm still going to carry on regardless. So short answer is, the Patriotic Socialist Party eventually became the British People's Party, and then it got dissolved. because the membership wasn't keen to carry on without me at its helm, which is understandable. I'm a natural inspirational leader. Oh dear, I've lost my place again. The Republic of Verdland? Verdan? Are you French? Verdan? I'm going to enter your territory. Don't think you are. Right. The Kingdom of Liverclaw says hello. Hello. Matthew Graham, what size do you see Stomaria in 10 years in terms of land and people? I get this question quite a lot, and I really just don't know. I mean, if we're just going to pull a figure from the air, we'll say, I don't know, somewhere between 25 and 50 acres of land in various parts of the British Isles, consisting of various types of land in terms of forest land, agricultural land, grassland, building land, as in building plots for residential properties. A mixture of those would be fantastic. In terms of the actual citizen count, it depends on how many I want. I've got no shortage of people applying to become citizens, but the issue is always that if they're not going to bring anything to the table, or if I don't think they fully understand what we're trying to do, then much like alliances, which I mentioned earlier in this video, I'm just not going to entertain the idea of getting them involved, because when people are representing Stomaria, I need them to really represent Stomaria, and I need them to understand what Stomaria is, what it stands for, how it's going to go about accomplishing it, and more to the point, I need to actually like the person involved. Because at this point in our development, if I can't gel with you, if I can't interact with you in a civil way, if I don't like you, frankly, then I'm just not going to allow you to become a citizen, because I don't want a constant friction to be there. I want there to be a seamless community where we are cooperating with one another in a more formal capacity, in a more professional capacity, and I want to cooperate with people that I like. It doesn't matter so much to me if people within Stomaria don't necessarily get along with each other for whatever reason. Not everyone's going to get along, but I need to be able to get along with them, because I'm the one that's ultimately going to be the common conduit between all of these different people, at least initially. It's not going to be so much of a prevalent issue as things go on, and the dozens turn into the hundreds and the thousands. I'm not going to know everyone personally, but certainly at this stage, I just need to know who's getting involved. So in terms of numbers of citizens, I don't know, but I'm not overly fussed. The number of citizens will be corresponding to the number of people I want to become, that I want to be Sumerian citizens, is the short answer. Let's have a look. Message retracted. The Kingdom of Liverpool says, I'm from the United Kingdom. We have a few people from the United Kingdom, which is good. I mean, there's a lot of communities or nation builders or whatever you else want to describe it, however they describe themselves, from the United Kingdom. But it's very hard, I found in the past, to actually find anyone from the United Kingdom that actually is accomplishing what we're doing. I can only think, really, outside of the Sealand or the Australasia. Is it Australasia? I can't even think now. But like some of the more OG Micronations, there was the Kingdom of Wayward, there's the Kingdom of Dunland. I don't know if the Isle of the Thur is still going. I don't know if they shut up shop or what, but there's maybe a handful that I can really name and think of. And yeah, so it is interesting to see all of these lesser known entities, or certainly entities that I've not come across, come forward and say they're from the United Kingdom as well. So it's good. It's good. The European Union has posted some kind of, is it a bird? I'm not even sure. No? Hammer and sickle, I think. I'm not sure what that's in response to. But yeah, the hammer and sickle is not something that I have any particular interest or time for. Go look at our Communism is Evil video and you'll probably understand why. Scott Roth. Hello Scott, how are you? Hello Andrew. Great to see you having a live chat. Always good to see these. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you do enjoy them. I enjoy them, I have to say. It's this is the second one I've done. It's always a lot messier. A lot of our videos, a lot of my videos, are a bit more heavily edited. They typically, these days, have a script, and I just read off the script and then keep cutting and pasting until the video is complete. And it does take out a lot of its soul. But the problem is that, like you probably experienced in this particular video and like the other live, I do tend to waffle on a lot about things and go on various tangents to the point where I can't even remember what the initial point was. So this is a good way for me to get that out of my system, I suppose, and then have the more condensed versions, the condensed videos where I discuss things in more detail, which do require a bit more of a concise conversation, let's say. But I do enjoy waffling through these. So I've got a few more here. The Republic of Silvikia? Again, you'll have to apologize. I apologize. Just correct me if I'm wrong and talk very slowly. Hello, how do we get a custom flag spreaders? Or how do you get them? Those that call, I don't know how to get them. What do you mean, sorry? Do you just mean how to get a physical flag? Because, I mean, there's plenty of companies out there that can do it. Depends on where you are in the world. You might have mentioned where you are in the world in a minute. I'll have a look in a minute. But I don't. People always ask me where we get the flags from. And if you're in the United Kingdom, it's probably more relevant. But we get them from a company called flagsandflagpoles.co.uk. But they are a UK-based company. So if you're from France or Germany or the United States or wherever else, there will be dozens of flag manufacturers which will be able to produce flags for you. I imagine at a cheaper rate, less international postage and all the rest of it. So my best advice for that sort of thing is just Google it. That's all we ended up doing. So yeah, we get them from flagsandflagpoles.co.uk. But if you're not from the United Kingdom, it's probably worth having a look elsewhere. The Kingdom of Liverclaw says, I've finished designing banknotes for Liverclaw. Banknotes. Okay. We're not going to get into that in this video. Well done. Congratulations. Is it a fiat currency or is it backed by something, dare I ask? Oh, okay. I've got a pronunciation here. Silvikia? Is that how you pronounce? Okay, so you pronounce it Silvikia. Okay, and you're in Finland. Okay, terrific stuff. Yeah, in which case I would definitely recommend having a Google, because I don't know companies in Finland that would make flags, but there are unquestionably companies in Finland that make flags. Matthew Graham says, don't regret you didn't get to do silly stuff in your 20s. You made yourself who you are today. It is true. And in all honesty, I don't know, even if I wasn't involved in politics, I don't know what exactly I would have necessarily done with my time. Because even, when I was 12 or 13, I was basically a 30-year-old man at that point. Just a minute. Losing my voice a bit. But yeah, when it comes to being a wild child, I was never a wild child. But I was just always very conscious of the fact that anything I said or did when I was in my late teens and early 20s would potentially get held against me later on. Whereas these days, I just genuinely don't care. I will say and do whatever I believe to be correct and believe to be right, and let the consequences come thereafter. The European Union, yeah, drink water. Yeah, okay, good. We're all caught up. Fantastic. Yeah, drink water. I think that's a good idea. So, just since I've caught up, and because it is something I wanted to quickly touch on in this particular video, okay, got another comment. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to stay focused here. I just want to quickly go through our website, and then just I think it might be an interesting exercise, because we got, I think, 8 from memory. Go through our objectives: agriculture, economy, energy, environment, government, money, rights and responsibilities, and taxation. So, these are all topics on our website in which Stomaria has taken a position. And these positions are based on what we can realistically accomplish in a practical, pragmatic sense. And so if we look at agriculture, what have we done regarding agriculture? Well, we have grown our own food. In Stomaria itself, we have been very successful in growing about 24 fruits, herbs, vegetables, and that was last year. And now we're going to be planting, I think, about 70 rhubarb plants in 35 different raised beds in order to produce jams. That's going to be our focus, as creating preserves in the next year or two, because they're going to be something that's going to be easier to transport, easier to store, more long lasting, and the rhubarb itself is quite good because of the geographical location of southwards, Sumerian province, where they're being grown, is quite a distance from me. So we need something that's hardy. We need something that's going to be relatively drought resistant. We need something that's not going to get eaten by deer or rabbit as a first choice. So rhubarb does tick all of the boxes on that front. And so having this hardy perennial being planted en masse to create preserves is the way we're going to go forward on that perspective. Going on from that, in terms of agriculture, I mean, we've had the Kingdom of Wayward, obviously, as a member state of the Empire. They've obviously had a wide range of livestock being raised and slaughtered and consumed or sold or whatever else at Southwood and Wayward South, which is the adjoining territory. And so, in terms of agriculture, we have made great strides on that front. I'm pleased to say, and agriculture is typically where they start, where people start when it comes to this nation building exercise, and there's a good reason for it. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. You just need the space, the land, to actually accomplish it. But once you get going, you can really make some strides. In terms of the economy, now, Sumerian economy is a bit of an interesting one, because the economy is not the same as a United Kingdom economy, for instance. It's more akin to a private business or an enterprise, in the sense that we have various revenue streams, but we don't have people working full-time within Stomaria on Stomarian industries, so we don't really have anything like that. But in terms of like economic activity, certainly the sale of agricultural produce is something. Certainly like seasoning the logs from felled trees at Southwood and Wayward South. Eventually they'll either be utilised or sold. In terms of local markets, we have had Waywoodian citizens in particular come to Southwood and Wayward South to sell some of their wares, which has been purchased in part with Stomarian status. So again, that's something, and we'll get onto the money aspect of things later. But in terms of revenue streams, I mean, you could count this very YouTube video right now as you're watching this. Stomaria is being funded through the funds, through the ad revenue from this YouTube video, because we have a monetized YouTube channel. And so revenue has been coming into Stomaria that way. Or beforehand, we had our Patreon campaign, which we've now discontinued because it kind of, we'll get into in a little bit about the taxation side of things. But now we have PayPal, so Stomarian citizens and supporters can contribute financially to Stomaria, either as regular monthly payments or one-off payments, but it's not mandatory. Again, I'll get into that later, but that's another stream of revenue that we have, because we do have citizens that contribute that way. And so in terms of an economy, it's a bit difficult to say we have an economy in the conventional sense, but we definitely have various streams of revenue coming in from various different sources, which is being used to help fund Stomaria, propel Stomaria further. And so we have made strides in that sense. In terms of energy, very, very low-key energy. It's not something we've developed too much, but we have had portable solar panels being utilised at Southwood, and that has generated energy. It's generated energy, and we've had it stored in these large battery packs, and these battery packs have been used just to charge small devices and phones, tablets, laptops, that sort of thing. So we are utilising energy that has been gathered at Southwood, which is good. It's a very small, very, very small step in the right direction, but we are nevertheless doing what we have set out to do on that front. In terms of the environment, well, we're obviously a woodland territory, and we have established areas within that woodland specifically for the development of wildlife. In fact, in February, in a few weeks' time, I'm going to be planting somewhere between 100 and 200 square meters of clover in the woodland itself, and we're going to see if that takes or not, because we want something green, and grass is less successful in the woodland. In times past it has been tried, but the clover is obviously a lot more ecological and environmentally friendly than grass, as it turns out. So we are going to be promoting the environment, local ecology, and all the rest of it on that front, as we already have done in the past. So again, we're making strides in the right direction on that front. In terms of government, not a lot to say here really. I mean, we establish ourselves as an absolute monarchy for a number of reasons. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details here. And we are acting as an absolute monarchy. My word is law, what I say goes, and all the rest of it. When it comes to Stomaria and Stomarian territory, in terms of the ordinary activities of people's lives, I don't have any say-so in that, obviously. Even if I had that option, even if I had that power, it's not something I have any particular interest in, because if it doesn't advance Stomaria's goals and it's not being accomplished through people wanting to actively get involved through voluntary association, voluntary affiliation, then I'm not particularly interested in it. I want people to be motivated by themselves to actually get involved. I don't want to use force or coercion or anything like that in order to get people to get things done. So if it doesn't get done because people aren't that interested, then it doesn't get done, or it certainly doesn't get done by them, because I will always do it. So in terms of government, again, we've set out what we accomplished because it was accomplished from day one. Money. When it comes to money, the actual utilization of sound money, we're talking about gold, we're talking about silver, we're talking about commodity money, real money, sound money. And this is something that we've always aspired to do, and from day one, this is what we have accomplished. Now, initially, we used silver and gold bullion, generic bullion, so Britannias and sovereigns and things like that. We transitioned in 2021, I think it was, the tail end of 2021 comes to mind. And we actually minted or commissioned the minting of our first coins, 5-gram coins made of pure silver. And we went on from there to actually hand stamp 50-gram bars, Sumerian state of bars. And these have been used, these have been utilized, these have been spread out in and amongst the community at large. There are a lot of Sumerian citizens and a lot of Waywidian citizens and David Consul of Vesta. Many have Sumerian state of coins and Sumerian state of bars, and they are quite highly sought after and treasured, I can tell you. And there's always a demand for more designs and more to be injected into the circulating supply. So in terms of acquiring and utilizing gold and silver as a medium of exchange, we've already done it. We haven't done gold necessarily, that'll come on maybe a few years down the line, but in terms of silver, in terms of utilizing a commodity money, a sound money, we have done that. And we are the only nation, the only empire, the only state that has actively used silver as a medium of exchange, a commodity money, a sound money, a real money. And this is not something that's even comparable to the United Kingdom, the United States, or China, or any other nation in the world. We're the only one that does this. And so that speaks volumes to what we believe in on that front. When it comes to rights and responsibilities, now this is a bit of a trickier one, because obviously I don't have any jurisdiction or influence or power over anyone within Stomaria, in the sense that even you're a Stomarian citizen, I can't tell you to do something against your will. So in terms of rights and responsibilities, people have the rights that they were born with and entitled to, and I don't have any authority or control over that. Now, when it comes to people getting involved in Stomaria, they are presumed to have certain rights, but they are also presumed to have certain responsibilities as well. In the sense that when I talk about rights and responsibilities, what I'm talking about is personal liberty and social responsibility. So when it comes to sort of personal liberty, I'm talking about an individual's right to choose. If they don't want to do something, then we can't use force or coercion to force them into that position. That's a given. But when it comes to social responsibility, we're talking about looking after the world around you to the benefit of others. So for instance, there's nothing to say, even though you might have personal liberty, you might have personal rights or whatever else, it doesn't mean you can pollute a river, because that affects everyone. And this is just one of the most obvious examples of that. But in terms of what we're doing, it's a bit trickier to either promote or enforce anything of that nature, because ultimately the laws of the land around us dictate what our own rights and responsibilities are. But certainly when it comes to promoting them on whatever level we can, we do try to promote individualism, individual liberty, individual property, individual rights, in as much as we can, which is why I have respect for the private property, for instance, of King Roland, David, and Consul David of Vesta and Wayward, because it's their land, it's their territory. I don't have any jurisdiction or ownership or control over it. It's theirs, they can do what they want with it. And that's probably a good example of respecting people's property rights, for instance. And the final one, taxation. Now, we are advocates for voluntary taxation. When we were initially founded, we actually had a system where people would simply be interviewed if they were interested in becoming a citizen of Stomaria. There was no financial exchange necessary for that to happen. And indeed, some of the first citizens that actually joined through that means didn't actually contribute financially to Stomaria up to that point, even though some of them did after they joined. We then transitioned to the use of Patreon as a means of recruiting citizens, in the sense that if you wanted to become a citizen of Stomaria, all you had to do was join us through Patreon. However, that led to a loss of control over who could identify as a Sumerian citizen, and that didn't sit right with me. And it did kind of fly in the face of our voluntary taxation system. You could pay as much or as little as you wanted, with a minimum threshold set. I think it was £1, and then £2.50, and then £5, or whatever else it was. You could pay over that, and that's where the sort of voluntary taxation came in, but there was still a minimum threshold, and it kind of created unnecessary friction with the values that we were aspiring to promote. And so we ditched that last year, and we went back to the system that we had, which is, if you want to contribute financially to Stomaria, you can. You can get, not through Patreon, I think it's through our PayPal, which you can find links on your website if you're interested in that sort of thing. It's not something we particularly heavily promote, but if you want to contribute financially to Stomaria, you do so through PayPal, but that's not a requirement for citizenship of the Empire. It's not something we necessarily look at when people apply. The first thing that we look at when people become citizens is, well, what have you done for Stomaria? Have you been boots on the ground? Have you been supporting us in some way? And more to the point, do you understand who we are, what we're trying to do, what we stand for, and all the rest of it? That's far more important to me than people paying £1 a month or whatever else. Even though I don't necessarily look down on people that go down that route, if they want to have a monthly subscription-based citizenship, I think there are merits to it, but one of the principal reasons, or two of the principal reasons that we ditched it, is because, first of all, we believe fundamentally in voluntary taxation. People should be able to contribute as much or as little as they want to the government, to the state, in which case that would be us. But also, it just meant that anyone that wanted to become a Estonian citizen could do, and I wouldn't necessarily know who they were, what they stood for, or if they were even genuinely interested in what we were trying to build. So for those two reasons, we went back to the original system that we have, and there's a system that we have today. So the bottom line is, everything that we have set out to do from our inception has in some way been accomplished. And I think this sort of, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier in this video. When I get people that say, oh, we're delusional, or we don't know what we're doing, or we're deceiving people, whatever else, we have been accomplishing what we set out to do for a long time now, and we are continuing to accomplish it. And the inability for people to accept or appreciate that isn't really our concern. If they don't understand what Stomaria is and what we've aspired to do and how far we have come, then that's not my job to correct them in that sense. They're just wrong, because what we have always aspired to do is something that we promoted heavily, and people that follow us, people that joined us, they know what we stand for, they know what we're trying to build, and they understand the limitations and the restrictions that we have in trying to accomplish this. But we have nevertheless made great strides, and I am going to keep pushing Stomaria forward over the coming years until eventually I am worn out and broken, and little Princess Eleanor is of an age and hopefully has an interest in taking over and pushing things even further beyond what I have done. Because everything fundamentally that I am building, and everything the citizens of Stomaria are building, this is just the foundations. I fully expect the next generation of Stomarians to take things further, and then the next generation of Stomarians to take things further still, until Stomaria becomes something that will look back on these humble beginnings and almost laugh at just how small and insignificant we were compared to the powerhouse that it will become in the future. And ultimately, that is what this is. This is a generational project. This is a generational enterprise. This is a generational nation and community. And to be able to push things as far as we have already is great, but we have a long way to go. And there's a lot more that will be done long after I'm dead and buried. So again, I just wanted to highlight that because it's interesting to me in terms of what we started with, what we decided what we were going to do, how we were going to go about doing it, and what we've actually accomplished. So with that in mind, let's jump back to the chat. Let's have a look. So there seems to be a conversation between Lucas Conway and Sylvikia. Yokin says we grow food like carrots, berries, radish, potatoes, pumpkins, cucumber. We get good honey as well. Yeah, so honey is something that we have touched on in recent times, and something hopefully we'll promote more heavily going forward. But yeah, in terms of growing your own food and produce and everything, that's a fantastic step forward, and it's something that's definitely to be celebrated, and something you should definitely promote more heavily if you don't already, because that is something, just doing things out there in the real world rather than just online is something that I think a lot of communities get stuck in because they get lost in the drama and the online bickering and all that jazz, and they kind of lose focus. And building something in the real world is a lot more rewarding than arguing with some trolls online. In fact, I have a little story to tell about that a little later on, if I get a moment. Lucas Corn says, we chose the presidential model. I forgot to type it. Okin says, I'm building a rocket launcher. Okay, fine. Okin becoming... Wait, sorry? Okian becoming the noble stan of the British Isles. And Sylvikia says, yep, noble stan. I don't know what is that a thing? Noble stan? I don't know. It's not as easy as the job seems. Okay, it's just like a conversation about that. The Yokin says, I haven't started YouTube properly yet, so I'm waiting for someone to show my nation. I've built history. Okay, yeah, no, that's understandable. I mean, when Stomaria was actually founded in June 2019, I don't think it was until, gosh, was it May? Maybe it was May 2020 before we actually put out a single YouTube video, and even between May 2020 and probably May 2021, I think maybe we only had half a dozen videos, and then we were cranking them out from 2021 onwards, I think maybe 1 or 2 a week, to the point now we've got nearly 200 videos on our channel. But yeah, we weren't initially on YouTube at all when we were founded, and then even when we set up a channel, we didn't use it for the better part of the year. I think we only had 50 subscribers for the first year, maybe 100. And then it just sort of skyrocketed as soon as we started utilizing it, and more people saw what we were doing and wanted to get more heavily involved in what we were building because they could see what we were building. And I think a lot of people like to see a face to a name and a face to a nation, and I am ultimately the face of Stomaria, for better or worse, and that resonates with a lot of people. So I think one of the best things you can do if you are looking to build a genuine nation is to put yourself out there, is to make yourself known, is to show off what you have been building, what you have accomplished, because any kind of progress is better than 98% of the posts or comments you'll see from, Micronations posting on groups or forums or whatever else, which normally just revolve around, look, I've changed my flag, look, I've changed my name, look, I've changed my government structure, we've declared war on so-and-so, or whatever else. If you post a photo of you picking some carrots, I guarantee that'll get a lot more of a positive reaction than any of these kinds of posts. So go and do that. Lucas Cormier says, we can't really do much because there is too much snow. Oh. So all the projects are on halt, so in the spring we can build again. So where are you, Lucas Conway? Are you obviously somewhere with snow, but I don't think that's the British Isles at the moment. That, you know, maybe if we're far enough north, I suppose so. Cat Pope says, blesses everyone in the chat. May great success come to your nations and your people. I'm sure everyone appreciates that, Cat Pope. Thank you. Republic of Slovakia says, sucks, Mr. President. Maybe we should invest into some snow shoveling equipment and company. Maybe. Lucas Corn says, good idea. Thanks, Cat Pope. So you're... Oh, okay, so you're in the south of Finland. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused here. So, Slovakia is located in southern Finland, and so is Lucas Conway. Is this the same person? Is it the same nation? Or maybe I've grabbed the wrong end of the stick here. So you're both from Finland, but separate, or both the same people? Don't know. But anyway, caught up with that for the moment. Okay, so no, I'm just the leader of... No, okay, so you're the leader of Slovakia. All right, terrific stuff. What was I saying? So something I wanted to highlight, and I have touched on this a little bit, is on Reddit, I have two accounts. I have the original one, which was u/Stomaria, and then I created another one, which was Andrew Stott. And I used the Andrew Stott one to promote Stomaria on our own subreddit, because we have our own subreddit. But before that, back when Stomaria identified as a micronation, I used the other account to promote Stomaria on Micronational subreddit, Micronation, r/Micronations. And I can't remember now why I was going back to it, but I hadn't been on there for over a year, because I had no need to. I wasn't promoting Stomaria on Micronational groups or forums for over a year at that point. But someone had sent me a message with a particular link to a particular website that I wanted to find, and it was in the chat of this old user account. And so I went back on it and got the link and all the rest of it. But I had a certain spark of nostalgia, and I wanted to see what had happened to all of the people that I had interacted with on r/Micronations. And so what I did is I scrolled all the way to the beginning, and then I just started to read through some of the conversations and comments and posts that I had put on r/Micronations. And the common theme throughout this experience of 20 minutes or so was that almost every individual that I was having a conversation with, in some form or another, it might have been some troll, it might have been someone showering us with praise, or whoever else, they just don't exist anymore. It was account deleted, account suspended, account last posted 2 years ago, or whatever else. And it really does emphasize to me just how fragile and short-lived these kinds of entities and these communities can be. And again, there's another reason that we don't have any particular interest in affiliating with hundreds or thousands of particular micronations or nations or communities, or however you want to define them, because ultimately they're not going to stand the test of time. There will be a few that do, but even the ones that we have affiliated with in the past don't appear to exist or function in any shape or form. A good example of that would be, I mean, if we go through the list of nations and communities that Stomaria has affiliated with formally, let's see, from the top of my head, you have the Kingdom of Norwick. As far as I know, they don't exist anymore. I haven't for years. The Republic of New Westphalia. They dissolved in 2020, I think it was. So they dissolved shortly after we had formal affiliations with them. The Princedom of Moreland, they dissolved, went defunct, went inactive. Who else was there? Lithua, the Kingdom of Lithua, or the Isle of Lithua. I'm not really sure what happened with them. I think their social media accounts on Facebook, I believe, got deleted or removed or something, and I think they set their Twitter to private or I don't know what happened to them. I've not heard anything about them for over a year, I think. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened to them. Then you had who else was there? Bran Howell, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're defunct as well. Certainly, no one's told me anything about them. Not that I would have any inclination to do so, but I've not come across them in any shape or form. Molossia, likewise, I think the last activity that they had was back in January 2022, I guess. No, 2023. 2023. I keep forgetting which year I'm in. So yeah, I think a year ago from there as well. So yeah, I mean, I think those are the only ones we've ever actually affiliated with, except for the Republic of Vesta and the Kingdom of Wayward, which is still active and a part of the Empire itself. But there's just something, I don't know, I don't think people are quite wired the same way as me, in the sense that I'm quite determined to make this happen. I'm quite committed in making this happen. But there are so many out there that will say that they're committed, that they'll say they're determined, that they'll say that we're not like the others. And then maybe they'll last a little longer than the typical Micronation, but then they just dissolve and they go inactive and they go defunct. And all of a sudden, you find yourself with 1,500 mutual recognition treaties with someone that doesn't exist anymore. So, again, this isn't necessarily just to rag on everyone that actually founds one of these nations or communities, but it is incredibly perplexing to me why anyone would put the time and energy into building something if it's just not going to be something that they have any intention of carrying on. Because I'm thinking about generations here. I'm thinking about passing it on to Eleanor after I built it up. And there are some people that just can't even last the summer holidays, you know? So, yeah, it's just something to think about. Yokin says Lucas is president of Slovakia. Okay, true. Start small and grow big and strong quickly. Yeah, I mean, starting small is a given, I think, when it comes to this kind of activity. So, for instance, when me and Samantha founded Stomaria, it was just us for a year. And a year is a long time for a lot of these sorts of communities, a lot of entities. But even so, we lasted a year before we started to integrate other people into the Empire and allow them to join as citizens of Stomaria. And then a year became 2 years, became 3 years, became 4 years, and come June this year will be our 5-year anniversary, which is quite an achievement, I think, considering the most humble of beginnings, which is the same kind of beginnings that a lot of people have. But we just had the wherewithal to actually stick with it and push forward and actually accomplish something. And we have accomplished things. And even if we packed up everything today and called it quits, what we've accomplished is real, it's tangible. We're talking about the acquisition of silver, we're talking about the acquisition of sabres, we're talking about the acquisition and utilisation of land. These are all things with, you know, a tangible worth, a tangible benefit, certainly from my own perspective. And so building Stomaria up in that way is pretty risk-free from my end. And it should be risk-free for all of these nations and communities. But the problem is they just very rarely get off their Discord servers. So certainly start small and build gradually. I mean, it's taken us nearly 5 years to get to the point that we're at now. And it'll be another 5 years before we accomplish the next major milestones, I'm sure. But in the meantime, we're just going to keep building, keep recruiting, keep expanding. And that's really the name of the game here. To develop Stomaria in such a way that it makes a mark, makes people sit up and pay attention to what we're trying to do. Because what we're trying to do is worth doing, in my opinion. Let's see what else we got. We have our 2-year anniversary at the end of the year. Hopefully we can host Independence Party to honour independence. And so Vicky says, sounds epic, Mr. President. So I think having a celebration to mark the anniversary is a very good idea. We have the Imperial Summit typically to mark these sorts of events, in the sense that we had our first one last year, because that was the first year that we had private freehold land, in the sense that we had purchased southward in No, maybe I've got that wrong. Where am I? I've lost my timescales. But anyway, the first Imperial Summit was last year, in June last year, and we had established it and built it up in order to facilitate an event there. And that's where a lot of the footage that you'll see on our YouTube videos in more recent times will all be from the Imperial Summit. And it was a good event, and we are hoping to replicate that this year. I need to have a conversation with King Raoul about it, because I think it's going to potentially be held in May, or the end of May, to commemorate Wayward and Stomaria's 5-year anniversary, because Wayward was actually founded a little over a month before Stomaria. So they were founded in May 2019, and we were founded in June 2019. So this year is both the 5-year anniversary of Wayward and Stomaria. And from the very early days, talking July 2019, we have been very close, since we were formal allies for a time, and then they became integrated into the Empire. I think it was in 2021 that they became integrated, and have been staunchly behind us ever since. And there's been great mutual benefit there in terms of the cooperation that we've had. And there's a whole catalogue, a whole history that covers everything from the purchase of land, which we actually purchased from the Kingdom of Wayward, to them raising livestock on our behalf, to us supplying them with a medium of exchange in the form of silver Stomarian status, and much more, much more. And I consider King Raoul to be a very good friend of mine, and I think Stomaria and Wayward complement each other quite well, because we have similar aspirations, we have similar goals, and what we are trying to build together is something that can't be interfered with by any third party. And the fact that I know him personally, the fact that he's only about an hour away from me, and I count him as one of my closest friends, it speaks volumes as to what you can accomplish when you actually get out there in the real world and you actually build something in the real world, as opposed to just building relationships with people online, which is not, wrong in itself. But if you want to really build something, if you want to actually establish a nation, then you have to be boots on the ground. You have to get out there. You actually have to do things, and that's something I would definitely encourage more people to do. But in terms of celebrating your anniversary, I think definitely commemorating it, hosting some kind of event, I think that will go down quite well with your community. Lucas Cormier says, we built a ship to demonstrate our engineering capabilities. I must say at the beginning it was successful, and the next day we kind of died. Sorry, does that say reason rain? Sorry. So you built a ship, but the rain, sank it? I'm a bit confused as to what happened there. Or maybe you just didn't finish it because it was raining. That's not showing too much commitment to cause. Right, where are we now? All right, I think we pretty much caught up, and I think I've pretty much covered everything that has been mentioned. We're going nearly, where are we now? Nearly 2 hours. We've had more of an interaction from the wider community than I initially thought was going to be the case. I was just going to give a blurb as to what we have been up to and what our plans were. But it's good to see that we had some sort of interaction. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop out just for 2 minutes, just to check on Ellen and make sure she's all right. I'll come back and I can see I've got some more comments coming in, so I'll read through those. But we're going to wrap things up shortly. But I'll give you a minute or two just to say whatever comments you want to make. So after I check them with Lelena, and then I'll be right back. She's fine, which is good. All right, just a few more comments, and then we'll wrap it up. Three Boots Drinko says, greetings all from Montana. All right, okay, so from Montana, yeah. I'm assuming that's not a nation or a community. I think that's just Montana. Andrew, I just wanted to say thank you and Stomaria for being such an inspiration. Although that public, we too are laying the groundwork for a real sustainable nation. Well, I'm very glad to hear that. It's not easy doing what we do. It's not easy because we actually have to put some time, some effort, some work into it. We have to put our money where our mouth is. We actually have to go out there and do things, which a lot of people just don't have the inclination, time, or interest in. So it is one of the reasons that we have, well over 2,000 people that follow us on YouTube, despite it being a very niche topic, because frankly we are the best of the best, in the sense that there's no one even comparable to what we are trying to do from our own background, from our own perspective, from where we're coming from. I can't think of anyone that's trying to aspire. There's certainly better known micronations like Molossia or Slowjamastan or whatever else, which have a lot of support from traditional media and all the rest of it, and have done for some time, in the case of Molossia at least. But they're not accomplishing what we're accomplishing. They're gimmicks, they're satirical communities. They have no interest in actually establishing nations. And the same can be said for a wide swathe of relatively well-known micronations. In terms of entities that have started from nothing and have tried to build a genuine nation that is rooted in reality, that is what Stomaria is, and that is why we have the following that we do, with thousands and thousands of people following us, with tens of thousands of people coming across us in some form or another at some point in their lives. And that's only going to become more and more significant as time goes on. We're going to have thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of millions of people over time that will come across us, that will know who we are, will know what we stand for, and many of those will go on to support us. And all we've got to do is keep doing what we have been doing for the last few years, which is to set out what we have been trying to accomplish, what we want to accomplish, how we're going to go about doing it, and then do it. We want to buy land in order to utilise it. So we bought land and we utilised it. We want to grow our own food so we can feed our own people. So we're growing our own food. We want to supply our own water so we can supply water to our own people. So we're supplying our own water. We want to generate energy. We want to utilise silver Sumerian state bar steels, state coins. We want to be able to utilise our own money. And so that's exactly what we're doing. The end goal, obviously, is to have enough land, enough territory, and enough financial resources behind us to purchase or build residential properties, to have established industries, and to actually have people come and living on Stomarian territory, working in Stomarian industries, actually making a living, actually being able to sustain themselves within Stomaria itself, without any need to go out anywhere else, if they so wish. To get to a point where if we wanted to pull up the drawbridge and survive based on what we have built ourselves, in terms of what we've grown ourselves and provided ourselves, that is the end goal, and that is the closest in this day and age that you will come to actually establishing a nation with a kind of de facto independence. You need to have an economic independence. You need to be able to provide for yourself everything that you need to survive. And if you can do that, then you are a de facto independent nation, and that is what you need to really aspire for, if that is what you're trying to go for. But I am glad that you found our content to be of use. Lucas Conway says, there was rain in the night, so the forecast didn't say there was rain, so we didn't put a protective... Okay, so there wasn't a protective cover, and your ship sank. Right. Okay, well, better luck next time. The Republic of Teresa? I'm going to say Teresa. Teresa. Tell me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm going to say Teresa. Greetings, Empire of Stomaria. I would just like to state my official gratitude for your hard work and inspiring me to make my own nation. You're very welcome. I'm glad that, again, you have been inspired to do so. It is something that I take great pride in having people build nations and communities that, if not mirror what Stomaria is doing, then certainly takes a leaf out of our book. Because I think what we stand for and what we promote is the way forward. I don't think there's another alternative means of doing this. I think that if you are going to look to establish a community and build a real nation, then you really need to have, notwithstanding a culture that's developed over the years, but you need to have a set of values, you need to have a set of aspirations, and you need those people that come in and become involved in that nation community to share those values and to share those aspirations. And simply coming together and then accomplishing something more significant than what you can achieve by yourself. That is the name of the game at the end of the day. Because I can buy as much land as I want, but at the end of the day, I do need people to govern it, to manage it, to work it. I'm happy to do a lot of it myself, and I do just that. And as I say, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going down to Southwood, taking 3 days off to go actually develop the land further. But in terms of expanding further and faster, it does require a team of people, a community of people, in order to make that happen. So if you can keep pushing forward in that way, and if you can keep doing what we're doing, acquire the land, develop the land, get more people involved, help get them to develop the land alongside you, and really build that sense of camaraderie, that friendship, that culture, that identity, based on those shared values and aspirations. That is the way forward. There's no other way forward. I kind of see time and again people saying, "Oh, we're going to claim this uninhabited landmass on the other side of the world, and that's going to be our nation. We're going to have a Discord nation or an online nation. We're going to have a Minecraft nation. We're going to claim a public park and claim the moon, or whatever else." It really is just pointless. If you actually want to do what we're doing, which is what I would recommend doing if this is what you're interested in, if nation is building what you're interested in, then you've got to go out there and put the time and effort in to actually buy the land yourself, to utilise the land yourself, to actually make tangible, real progress. So anyway, I can't even remember how I got into that, but I'm glad that you've found some inspiration in what Stomaria is building. Lucas Coyne says, you should watch the video if you have time, titled Empress of Slovakia. I'll have a look. And leave a comment while you're at it. We'll see. The Oaken Union says, fishing is a big part of the Oaken Union. Why is it the Oaken Union? I keep saying your name, but I'm not quite sure where it comes from. So let me know where that comes from. Fishing is a big part of the Oaken Union. National foods are crab, prawns, rabid rabbits, and other. Rabid rabbits. Maybe it's a typo or something. All right, good. That's a seafaring nation, seafood eating nation. What else we got? Anil Flimo says, thank you so much. I really love this. Is it possible for you to buy an island? I think people always go down this route. So for some reason, I don't understand why. If you bought an island, let's say hypothetically you did. If it's an island that's been purchased, it's already been claimed by someone. So it is already the sovereign territory of another nation or another state of some kind. So right from the get-go, you don't have any kind of de facto independent status just because you own the island. In the sense that it would be no different to you buying a plot of land on the mainland itself. But the big difference is, obviously, if you're on an island, getting access to that is far more challenging. So if you need to import food, fuel, building materials, people, it depends on how developed the land is, the island is. Are you going to have an internet connection, Wi-Fi, phone signal? I mean, are you going to be living on a desert island or something with whatever poisonous reptiles or whatever? Or are you going to be on islands in the North Sea, freezing to death with no trees? I mean, buying an island, I don't know why this mentality that if you buy an island, it's somehow better than just buying land that you can actually access. It doesn't make any difference. Because if you're buying it, it's already been identified, it's already been claimed, it already belongs to a nation or a community as it is, and it just makes it impossible to actually utilise, because you're going to struggle to get access to it, and you're going to struggle to get back off it, unless you're especially well off, which I am not, so I will not be buying an island. Um, Yes, purchase of some islands is available, however, they are very expensive, yeah. I'm interested in what keeps you inspired and continue building rule over the Empire of Stomaria, and that's from Libertas government. I'm not sure I've come across it before, but I assume you're some sort of libertarian nation or community, I guess. In terms of what inspires me to keep going, is that this is where ultimately my interests lie. For as long as I can remember, 9, 10, 11 years old, I've always been interested in ancient history, in civilization building, in nation building. And it's always fascinating to me just how almost instinctive it is to me to want to keep building, keep creating, keep evolving. And when I look through history books, even now, about ancient Sumer and Acadia and Mesopotamia and all the rest of it, and then you have ancient Persia, ancient Carthage, ancient Greece, and all of these different civilizations, even going further afield into the the ancient Incas or the Mayans or the Aztecs or whoever else. These are all civilizations that I have a great deal of interest in, because by and large it all starts the same way, which is from nothing, and then eventually it builds and evolves over how many decades or hundreds or thousands of years into something that really truly has changed the course of history. And I'm under no illusions in that what I'm trying to build now is not going to come anywhere close to where I want it to be in my lifetime. But if I do not start it, then it will never start. And so if I can take everything that I've built and pass it on to the next generation, in this case will be little Princess Eleanor, who would then become Empress Eleanor. If she hopefully has the inclination to keep pushing forward with these sorts of aspirations of mine, then that is the ultimate goal. My inspiration, my desire is to keep establishing something that Eleanor will be able to stand on and actually build on further for her eventual children to take on. And this idea of just building a society based on voluntary association and voluntary affiliation, perhaps the first nation in the world that will have been founded and created without the use of force or coercion or bloodshed, one that's built simply based on what we as individuals believe in terms of our values, in terms of the objectives that we hold dear, be it environmentalism, be it in terms of monetary reform, be it in terms of our belief in rights, the rights of the individual, or whatever else. These kinds of values are something that can be found across all cultures, in the sense that you will have people of different races and religions, and or none, and different backgrounds in terms of the nation that they were born into. A lot of these people will have the same values and aspirations that we do, and we will be able to pull together quite a melting pot of individuals from the back, in the sense that they'll have different backgrounds, but their values will be the same. And so this is going to be a nation built on shared values and aspirations, not on skin colour, not on faith, not on religion, not on the nation in which they were born into and the cultures in which they have come from, but what they actually believe. And if these sorts of values and aspirations are passed down to the children, in the same way that you might have a Christian family raising Christian children or whatever else, then these sorts of values and aspirations will continue to develop and be preserved in some sense in Stomaria. And as I say, because this nation is one built on voluntary affiliation and voluntary association, people will be able to come and go as they please and drop out as they please. But ultimately, what I want to see is I want to see Stomaria become something far more than what I am going to be able to turn it into. I can only lay the foundations. I'm going to be working for the rest of my natural life in making this happen, and gradually giving Eleanor more and more responsibilities and more say-so in the governance of it when she's old enough. I mean, she's only 3 at the moment, so she has a long way to go. Although, having said that, she is actually the governor of Southwood, the first ever Stomaria province. And I have gotten her involved in some way in helping to develop that land in the past, and I will be doing so in the future. And to have her become more and more heavily involved in what we are building, even on the smallest, most mundane and often cute scales, is very important to me, because ultimately that's where everything is going to go at some point. Rabid rabbits. I'm not. Okay, it was rabid rabbits then. All right. The opinion says Rickroll Island is its own country owned by MT. I have to read it, sorry. So the opinion says Rickroll Island is its own country owned MT, a micronation bought it off a people. I'm not really sure what this is. But yeah, okay. I think we'll leave it there. Because I'm losing my voice, and I think Empress Samantha has just come home now, so it was a good time as ever to leave it there. So I'll leave it there. But thank you for everyone for joining us. I hope it did give you an insight as to what we've been up to over the last few weeks, what I hope to do in the next few weeks, my reasons and rationale for not being as present as I would otherwise be. And thank you for your questions and concerns and keeping us all company on this little journey that we've had tonight. I think 2 hours is a good benchmark, I think, going forward for these sorts of live Q&As. But if people are interested in seeing more of them, then do let me know, because if more people want to see these kinds of videos, then I'm inclined to do at least once a month. But if people want it more regularly, I can potentially do it twice a month, in lieu of more conventional videos that I put out there. But if you want to let me know in the comments what you prefer, do let me know. But otherwise, I hope you have a very good evening, or a very good day, wherever you might be. And if you did enjoy this video, then please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.